Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. The U.S. Supreme Court is considering whether former President Donald Trump should have immunity for his alleged campaign to overturn his 2020 election loss and remain in power. Though there's no constitutional guarantee to the claim of presidential immunity, the conservative justices, of whom 3 were picked by Trump, may decline to rule and punt it back to lower courts, potentially delaying a trial in his election subversion case until after the November elections. Christopher Martinez reports.
D. John Sauer argued on behalf of the former president and current presidential candidate in the case Donald J. Trump versus United States. Sauer argued that Trump cannot be charged for attempting to overturn his 2020 election loss because he has presidential immunity for official acts.
If a president can be charged, put on trial, and imprisoned for his most controversial decisions as soon as he leaves office, that looming threat will distort the president's decision-making precisely when bold and fearless action is most needed.
Michael Draben is counselor to the Justice Department's special counsel in the Trump criminal case.
His novel theory would immunize former presidents for criminal liability for bribery, treason, sedition, murder, and here conspiring to use fraud to overturn the results of an election and perpetuate himself in power. Such presidential immunity has no foundation in the Constitution. The framers knew too well the dangers of a king who could do no wrong.
Justice Brett Kavanaugh says the case has huge implications for the future of the presidency and for the future of the country.
It's not going to stop. It's going to cycle back and be used against the current president or the next president and the next president and the next president after that.
The court is expected to release its ruling by the end of June. Most court watchers expect at least a partial victory for Trump. I'm Christopher Martinez.
The U.S. is joining the call for an investigation into the mass graves found near Al Nasser Medical Center in Gaza. Vedant Patel, a State Department spokesperson.
We continue to find these reports incredibly troubling.
Nearly 400 bodies were located with signs of torture and summary executions, according to Gaza officials. Patel said earlier this week Israel said its forces stumbled upon the graves where Palestinians had previously been buried in search of Israeli hostages. Gaza officials say the bodies were wrapped in plastic, not shrouds, used in Palestinian burials in Gaza. Student activism against the war in Gaza and state repression continues to grow, with new encampments propping up at Emory University in Atlanta, where law enforcement arrested some 24 protesters. Video shows a white officer tasing a black student already on the ground as 2 other officers put the student in handcuffs. Also arrested, chair of the philosophy department. Local media report at least 28 arrests. At George Washington University, hundreds of students rallied and began an encampment Thursday. Marian Ingram, an 88-year-old Holocaust survivor, spoke in support of the protests in this video that's gone viral, posted by Pacifica sister station reporter at WPFW in Washington, D.C.
It pleases me to know and to see that you are here. I take courage and inspiration from you to keep going.
Anti-war encampments have also propped up at Florida State University, Tallahassee, University of Washington, Seattle, Northwestern University, UCLA, and Cornell. They're among more than a dozen other campuses across the country where hundreds have been arrested. University of Southern California says it's canceling its commencement ceremony over student anti-war protests. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu compared the protests to Nazi Germany in the 1930s. Hundreds of Israelis have protested outside Netanyahu's home demanding his resignation over failures to secure the release of more than 100 hostages still in Hamas captivity. The Federal Communications Commission reinstated net neutrality Thursday, voting 3-2 along party lines to expand government oversight of broadband internet service providers like Comcast and AT&T. Net neutrality rules prevent them from favoring some sites and apps over others and throttling or slowing down service for some users over others. The Republican-controlled FCC rolled back government net neutrality rules under the Trump administration. A new report from the United Nations Food Agency says more than 281 million people around the world face acute food insecurity. Max Pringle reports.
The numbers of people facing acute food insecurity rose by 24 million between 2022 and 2023, according to the report. The report says conflicts like in Gaza, Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo have contributed to the rising numbers, as have weather-induced crop failures in places like southern Africa. Maximo Torero is the chief economist of the Food and Agricultural Organization, or FAO.
The number of forcibly displaced people reached 90 million in 59 countries and territories, and acute malnutrition among children and women continued to deteriorate. In 2023, over 36 million children under 5 years old were acutely malnourished in 37 food crisis countries.
Arif Hussein is chief economist with the World Food Program. He said funding shortfalls to aid groups are making it harder to get help to where it's needed.
Last year and this year, we are looking at a gap of 60 to 70%, which is not sustainable.
I'm Max Pringle.
I'm Christina Onnested, reporting for Pacifica Radio.